ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.
Welcome to ASEAN Biz, your only choice for business updates covering ASEAN countries. I'm Andrew Chia.
And I'm Eric Chong.
And we bring you business news on everything that happens around the world that involves ASEAN countries.
Yes, our direct main story today is managing household debts in ASEAN. But before that, let's look at our current business updates on the topic of global oil prices.
Yes, Eric. Every time towards the end of the month in Malaysia, the citizens will be a bit excited. Some will be anxious to know whether there's an increase in petrol prices for the coming month.
Yes, and I still remember that those days during the end of the month, people will queue up at the petrol stations.
Yes, there'll be a long queue at the petrol kiosk.
Anticipating that the price will increase for petrol.
Yes.
But recently the oil price have been dropping, so the expectations of any price increase in petrol is slightly dropped.
Yeah, and people are sort of fed up with that small savings of petrol when they line up at the petrol kiosk, right?
Yes, at times they actually line up about half an hour for them
just to save a few cents or a few dollars.
Well, in those days, remembered our petrol was quite high at one time. It was close up to $2.35.
Yeah, it was
at one incident.
Yeah,
and straight away
expensive.
the next day we saw a very tremendous drop in traffic on the road the next day.
We always have this kind of knee-jerk reaction. Yeah. Oh, petrol is so expensive, I might as well not drive my car.
So everybody start carpooling.
Right. Within a few days, you'll find that it's very inconvenient.
Everything is back to normal.
Right, yeah. So for December, petrol prices in Malaysia, there's a slight drop of 10 cents for the standard RON 95 grade petrol. So a lot of people will be very happy with the 10 cent drop.
Well, but a 10 cent drop goes against a 70% increase in toll charges.
Right. That's quite a hefty increase in toll charges in Malaysia, right?
Yes. And oil prices have been hovering slightly above 40 a barrel for the month of November 2015.
Yes, it's been around 40, 41, 42, for most of the month.
During these 2 months, October, November, is hovering around the lower end of the $40.
Yeah,
right.
And people are still expecting prices to go to $100 a barrel. Those were the days, not so long ago.
Yes, and remember during our earlier editions,
couple of months back,
we actually forecasted that it will still hold at about 40 or even drop to below
35.
40.
Yes, we actually mentioned that oil price might reach the level of 35 in one of our earlier editions.
And we also mentioned that even gold price will drop.
Yes.
Yes, and true enough, now towards the end of the year, gold price is actually dropping.
Yeah, and right
oil
now
price is still dropping.
People are getting used to oil at $40. For a long time, it has been above $100. At one time, at its peak, it was $140 a barrel.
I would say $40 if you are looking back at about 40 years ago.
Maybe even 10, 20 years ago, it was around that level.
But it didn't hold on for that long at $40.
In fact, it was quite some time when, people get used to it after a while, maybe a year or two, isn't it?
Yes.
So at that time, $40 was
it's
something
become a norm already.
Get used to already. And then suddenly it shot up to $100.
$100.
And people are not used to it.
And start to jump.
Then after some time, people are really used to oil above $100. Right now, $40 is quite a shock for a lot of people.
Yes, and especially those commodities investors who buy in the futures for oil prices. Right?
They buy call options
and the future prices, expecting oil prices to increase.
Right now, people are starting to buy put options for oil prices already. Because they are get used to $40.
Oil dropping, the price dropping, right?
And we have reports saying that next year in 2016, it may drop below 40 for most of the year. We don't know whether that is accurate or not.
So what actually causes these things to drop?
I think the OPEC countries, right? They are the main forces behind.
They are the main forces behind, and also there are other non-OPEC countries are actually producing a very high volume of oil in their countries.
And everybody is supposed to cut back on production. It seems that they didn't cut back, right?
They didn't cut back, and also I think the demand also dropped because of the overall global
economy is slightly weaker in 2015.
And also with the new technologies in consumptions, the economics consumption is actually more efficient for cars, and cars are getting more efficient. They don't actually gas up so much of petrol.
Few injection and stuff like that.
And you can actually see that now cars are actually dropping their capacity with the increase in performance but lower in capacity.
Right, okay, Eric, shall we take a short break and let us be back for our main story today?
Yeah, sure.
Stay tuned, guys. Welcome back, guys. You're listening to ASEAN BIZ, and our Durian main story today is Managing Household Debt in ASEAN. But before we bring you our main story as usual, Eric is going to share with us his funny business moment. And today, the title of his story is Christmas Gift Again.
A husband got his mother-in-law a cemetery plot for Christmas. It came with a coffin, tombstones and the works. Next Christmas comes by and the husband get her nothing. When the mother-in-law asked, "Why didn't you get me a gift?" The husband said, "You haven't used the one I got you last year."
Now I'm sure hubby was down and out with a left hook from his wife, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Eric, for that funny business moment. Welcome back to the show, guys. You're listening to ASEAN BIZ, your only choice for business updates covering ASEAN countries. I'm your host, Chia, and together with me is Eric Chong, and we bring you business news on everything that happens around the world that involves ASEAN countries.
The title of our Durian main story today is Managing Household Debts in ASEAN. This story is brought to you courtesy of research done at CENFIS, that is the Centre for Financial Intelligence Studies, based in London. And Chia is the research coordinator for Asia region.
Right, Eric, we are talking about household debt. The word debt can cause a lot of people to be very excited, very anxious,
worried,
isn't
worried,
it?
When you heard of debts, people are getting worried.
And for most of the time, we are talking about national debt owed by countries. Today, we are going a little bit more micro. Yes. We are going to talk about household debt. Basically, we want to talk about what is household debt and what is the safe level for household debt for any country. And also, we would like to explore what is the safe level of household debt for a family. And what happens when that household debt reaches unsafe levels.
Wow.
And finally, we want to cover what are the factors that determine household debt.
That's
and
quite a mouthful, isn't it?
Yes. So let us go slowly, one by one, Eric.
So, Andrew, what is household debt?
Basically, I believe household means if you are not married, you yourself is a household. If you are married, then you plus your wife is the household.
So actually, we are looking at the whole family on the whole.
Yes.
Even though if you are not married, you are referring to whether you are staying with your parents, brother and sisters, all together in the house. Right. So, is this looking debts into this household debts? Is this crucial in financial?
Yeah, definitely. Household debt can cause a lot of things, whether happiness or sadness. Whether when there's manageable debt or little debt in the household, everybody is happy, right?
It's all looking at what sort of percentage you use your income to service your debts.
Yeah. So let's take a look at further away from home in US. The number one cause of divorce in US is related to household debt. Quarrels arising from debt.
Yeah, I would say that is one of the major factors around the world.
Yeah.
Not only in US. And most housebroken is because of household debts.
You can imagine the husband and the wife will go something like this. Why did you buy such an expensive house? You were the one who asked for it.
Yes, I wanted
to. You cannot manage. Why did you get so much debt?
I wanted to provide you a more comfortable house.
So the blame game starts going. And before long, people will be quite upset. Okay. So, what is the safe level of household debt if we look at a country? How much would that be compared to, say, with the GDP, Eric?
Yeah, I would say it depends on different countries. each individual countries will have their own different thing. But looking at a safe level, it should be around, on the general, it should be about 80% of GDP.
Right, yes.
Right.
If it's more than that, it's like a red flag, or
Right.
the alarm bell should go off.
And
You're having too much debt.
And if we remember a couple of episodes back, we talked about GDP of countries against their ratio.
Right.
So not all countries maintain 80%.
Yes. We
Right.
are talking about generally accepted level of debt, which is safe.
Safe, right.
So of course, each country will be different. Some will have less, and some will have more, and some will have much more.
Much more. Right. So we look at countries. What is the safe level of household debts for a family?
That is a good question.
Yeah,
a lot of people
since
will
we
be
are talking
thinking,
about going into micro.
how much debt should I get into before it reaches a breaking point, or before our relationships go sour? Okay, so that figure is 60% of your income. For example, you earn $1,000.
Yeah.
You should not be paying loans and debts more than
$600.
dollars.
Yes.
Okay, you must leave something for your own food and petrol and moving around, right?
Yes,
Okay,
that's
otherwise
true.
there'll be no more money, and that's going to be very troublesome. So 60% is the magic number for household debt in a family for servicing per month.
So how many of you are keeping 60%?
Let's look at the general average earning, say about $3,000, right?
Yes.
So if you're earning $3,000, you should not be paying debts more than 60% is how much?
60%.
Pass me a calculator, Eric. 60% of $3,000, that would be 1,005, is it?
No, more than that. It should be around 1,008.
Oh, sorry,
Right.
my arithmetic is so bad. Okay, 1,008, guys. If you're earning $3,000, which is average earning by a lot of people, you should not be paying bank loans and car loans and stuff
It
like
should
that.
be hovering between 1,008 to 2,000.
Yes,
But
at
when
least-
it touches 2,000, it will be a dangerous point, right?
Yeah, you can imagine if you earn 3,000, you pay 2,000 for loans on cars, credit cards, and personal loans, leaving only $1,000 for you to eat for the whole month. That is rather insufficient,
Yes,
right?
and don't forget, you need to set aside for your car insurance, your house insurance,
Right.
and your house maintenance and your car maintenance.
And when your cash is a bit tight, insurance is not the first thing on your mind, right?
Yes.
But insurance is very important. So please don't get yourself into such a
And
situation.
it's
that you have-
recurring expenses.
Right, yeah, every month, every year. You have
Every
to
month
pay,
you
right?
got to set aside, even for house also, every month you got to set aside a funds to actually maintain your house. Right?
So, Eric, you mentioned just now the question, what happens when household debts reaches unsafe levels?
Well, I would say that on the overall, the economic may be jeopardized.
Yeah, the country's economy may be jeopardized.
Because when you talk about household, is a so-called gathered of the whole thing that represent the economy of the country.
Then the what they call national savings,
National
national
savings.
consumption,
Yes.
the economy may not move because you have no more money to buy things.
So it's
you have
actually
paid all your debts.
Right, it's actually a sum of all incomes that represents
Right.
of the household that
So
represents.
what happens when the economy is jeopardized?
Right.
Market crash may occur.
Right, and the stocks and properties
Yeah, either stocks and
will be
properties
affected,
or both may crash. Okay.
and investment may be halted.
Yes. And
Consumer and international confidence affected.
of course, maybe foreign investors, they look at our country, these guys don't have any more purchasing power.
Yes.
If I do a project in that country, I might not be able to sell or make money from there.
And if you look deeply enough, we pick one or two countries to look into their situations. For example, like Greece, or these countries who are very high debt ratios, you can see that their country is facing this kind of problems.
Yeah, and people don't dare to invest, right?
Yes.
So on a personal level, Eric, what happens if a household debt reaches unsafe levels?
The first thing is will affect is the health.
Yes.
Then the relationship with the family.
Yes, you
or
can imagine.
especially the wife.
Yeah,
or the
hypertension.
spouses.
Yeah, not only
Hypertension
the
will come.
wife, the spouse, the children, or maybe even the family pets may be affected.
Yes, because when you are stressed up, you just kick the dog.
Yeah, you either kick the dog or the cat, or worse still, you cook them for eating.
food.
I mean, in certain parts of ASEAN.
Yes.
Okay, poor doggy. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's no
SPCA don't
laughing
come
matter,
after us.
Eric. When
Yes.
people are stressed out, they get hypertension, they get
Hypertension.
cholesterol problems, they may even get cancer because a
Yes.
lot of toxins build up in
Builds
the
up.
body, right?
And worse still, should they fall sick, they have no money to take care of them as well.
Yeah, like the Chinese saying, you should not fall sick, you better die.
You better die.
It's a bad saying, but it's quite a common saying among Chinese.
And you look at nowadays the medical bill are not cheap at all. So that's what problems, and one thing leads to another. The family will suffer. So
Right, Eric, come, let's look at what are the factors, we look back now,
Right.
and what are the factors that cause household debt to increase and go to unsafe levels.
right. Firstly, I would say that the state of the country and economy. Some are richer, some are poorer.
Yeah, for example,
The
you talk about ASEAN
disparity,
countries. Some countries,
Disparities of the right.
yes, correct. And one of the other reasons is that in 2008, we remember we had a subprime crisis, right, in
Yes,
US.
in US.
Okay, so after the subprime crisis, a lot of international banks, say Citibank, Charter Bank, or HSBC, they lend less money to the US because they are afraid of that
Afraid of
country.
the
They can't
country,
pay back.
can't
So
pay
what
back.
happens then was that these foreign banks came over and lent a lot of money to ASEAN countries. Okay, for example, Malaysia. Banks are businessmen also. They want to make money, right?
True.
So if I can't lend to Asia, US or Europe, I might as well lend to ASEAN countries. And within a short period from 2008 to today, we can see that household debt levels have risen drastically and dramatically. You know, from very low levels to super high levels in a few countries in ASEAN. Probably those richer ones.
Richer one. Right. So we will come to that detail later.
Yeah, that was one of the factors that helped to increase household debts in ASEAN countries.
Then the next factor, whether it is easy to access credit.
Yeah, in some countries you have to walk for miles to reach a bank. Okay,
Yes.
and the banks don't lend you money easily.
And in our country, we are so easy.
Oh,
Just
it's
over the
super
internet,
easy.
super easy,
Yes.
over the internet,
Yeah,
and
and
you
it's
get approved.
even easier in Singapore, Eric. You know why? Singapore is an advanced country whereby information can be easily collected over the internet. For example, here we can cheat a little bit and tell the bankers we earn X salary a month, you know, instead of Y. But in Singapore, you can't. Your salary is all linked to the CPF, linked to the government tax department and stuff like that. And it's easy for the bankers to know exactly
Yes.
how much you
How
earn.
much you earn and how much of margin they can give you some more.
Yeah. So you can imagine easier access to credit because of that.
So the bankers in Singapore will have a field day when they found that you still have more capacity. You haven't reached your 60% yet.
I'm told, Eric, I don't know whether it's true or not. The bankers give you ease of use, a button on your own personal computer at home, whereby they set you a limit. You can borrow up to so much. If you don't need so much, it's fine. If ever you need that amount of money, extra credit, you can just self-service yourself.
Press the button.
And that credit will be into your
You're
account.
talking about advance in technology.
So good and bad, you know, because we all have itchy fingers and we can't resist consumerism, right?
Right. And especially when in a country like Singapore, you have all the temptations over there.
Yeah,
The
so
latest products, the latest technology, everything is there.
exactly. Who to blame?
Who to blame? Okay. Next, then the government or central bank policies.
Yes, I believe this plays an
Yes.
important part.
Which to allow banks to lend to customers and how they kept the lending
Right,
percentage.
exactly. I believe the central bank can play a lead role in controlling household debt from getting out of control, right?
Yes, that's true. Then
And finally,
both the governments and citizens' level of financial intelligence and discipline. I
Yes.
think this is the most crucial thing.
You
Right.
know, you say it's most crucial because most people find it difficult to practice discipline, right? You see
As
a
always.
nice bag, you know, you want to buy. You see a nice pair of shoes or a nice watch or maybe a beautiful car or a bigger house.
Yes.
You can't resist.
And especially with those geniuses doing the advertisement.
Yes.
Right.
Before we go for a short break, I would like to share with you a short quote from the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Dr. Mahathir.
Right.
He says this very beautiful piece of financial intelligence advice. Please don't buy a $500 bag and put nothing in it. Instead, buy a $50 bag and put $450 into that bag.
Well, that's good.
Don't you think that's fantastic advice,
Fantastic,
Eric?
because a bag is still a bag.
Yeah, this calls for a lot of discipline because your friends are all having that bag and you don't have it.
You don't have it.
So that advice comes very handy. Make sure, if you can buy that bag, 500 bag, okay, but make sure you have $2,000 to put it into.
To put it inside. Okay, we will take a short break and be back with our short story. Stay tuned, guys. Don't go away.
Welcome back, guys. You're listening to ASEAN Biz, and our Durian main story today is managing household debt in ASEAN. But before we continue with the concluding part of our story today, Eric will give us a quick health tip. Now, Eric is our health and fitness coach, and he runs the 100 km marathon himself. His health tip story for today is stock up your healthy foods.
For this edition, I will share with you how we should eat in our 20s, and then the next 3 episodes I will share with you how to eat on the 30s, 40s and 50s onwards. As we know, with each decade that passes, your food choices and dietary habits may need a little adjusting. Whether you are 20 years old or 70 years old, the basic of a healthy diet apply. Keep your proteins lean, focus on healthy carbohydrates, such as colorful fruits and veggies and whole grains, and eat moderate amount of healthy fats from food such as nuts, avocado, olive oil and fatty fish. But with each passing decade, there are some areas of your diet that may need some attention. There are subtle shifts in nutrients and calorie needs. Eating and activities patterns are often influenced by the demands of your daily life. So here is your decade by decade guide to healthy eating. Let's start with eating in our 20s.
Okay.
Right.
Eric, it's a little bit too late for that. For me lah. Okay. So for the benefit of our younger audience, please take some advice from this article which Eric is sharing with us. Yeah. If you're in your 20s, this is a good diet for you.
Yes. For many, this is the decade where the transition is made from college to career. Eating and drinking habits in your early 20s may not be the best, and as you transition into a regular work schedule, you might carry some of these habits with you. Working life often brings more meals out, coffee breaks with colleagues, and happy hours after work, all of which can impact your diet. Establish healthy habits now. The eating habits you have now are likely to stay with you for the rest of your life. If your diet isn't as good as it should be, now is the time to start establishing better habits. Eating well is one of the few habits you get to practice several times a day. So aim to make the best choices of every meal and snack. First, get plenty of calcium.
Yes, calcium, guys.
Yes. When you are in your 20s, you are in the peak bone building years. Give your bones plenty of calcium from dairy products, leafy greens and fortified foods, or take a supplement if you can't meet needs from dietary sources. Avoid crash dieting.
It's very common.
It's very
young
common.
people crash dieting.
Yes. At this age, it isn't difficult to knock off a few pounds by going on a crash diet for a short period of time. But quick weight losses are often followed by weight regains, and yo-yo dieting isn't a pattern you want to establish.
Yes.
Yes. That's what you heard every time. How come I lost
a few kilos,
but I gained back many kilos?
But when they gain back, they don't talk about it. Okay.
Yes. Right. Then the next is this. I have to watch out.
Okay.
Watch your alcohol calories.
Yeah, young people, please don't boost too much. Okay.
Yes. Alcoholic beverages can be very costly calorie-wise. Okay.
Yeah.
If socializing often involves alcohol, cut your calorie intake by alternating alcoholic beverages with calorie-free drinks, and watch those free appetizers at happy hour too.
Yeah, don't get a beer belly too early in life, right?
You found that it's difficult to get it off.
Yeah.
Then, especially for women, get your iron. Many young women don't get enough much needed iron. Lean red meat, beans, leafy greens, and fortified cereals can all help to meet needs. And supplements can help if it's difficult to get all your needs from your diet. Right? So for today, That's it for the 20s.
For the 20s. The
For
next episode, it will be the 30s. Hey,
So-
Eric, it will take some time before you reach me, right?
No problem.
Okay, thanks, Eric, for that useful health tip. Let's continue with our Durian main story today, that is, managing household debt in ASEAN.
Well,
We have covered all the pros and cons and all the previous information on ASEAN countries. Right now, we'll be doing a country-by-country analysis to find out exactly what is happening to the household debt situation in each of our member countries in ASEAN. Starting with Brunei. Brunei is always the first on the list because it's
alphabetical.
alphabetical order. Yes, Eric, tell us what is happening in Brunei on the household debt situation.
As usual, Brunei is does not release much figure, so the ratio are not available. But the central bank actually set a limit of 60% of household debts against income.
Wow, that's a very good move, very responsible of their central bank, right?
Yes, which means to say that most of their loans is controlled by central banks.
They are protecting their citizens.
See that they are protected up to 60% of their household.
Otherwise, they can't service their loans.
Then next we have Cambodia.
Right. Cambodia, like Brunei, like Eric mentioned, the ratio and certain figures are also not available due to various reasons. But what we know is that a few years ago in 2011, there was a great flood, and that flood affected most parts of the countries. There are something like 24 provinces, whereby about 80-90% of the provinces were affected. And this caused some financial hardship in their already quite poor citizens. Okay? And this resulted in more household debts. But I believe debt levels are very, very much lower than the richer countries due to the difficulty in obtaining loans from the banks and financial institutions, right?
Yes, and I would say that most of the Cambodians are farmers.
Right.
Well, which means to say their accessibilities to infrastructures are
Yeah, they probably have to walk miles to get to a bank.
To get to a bank. And also, that does not have any so-called recorded official income to back their loans.
The paperwork is not
Not
popular.
complete, right?
Okay.
Right.
So next on the list is who?
Indonesia.
Right.
You'll be
Indonesia
surprised.
is a big country, lots of population.
Lots of population, and you'll be surprised that Indonesia ratio is only 10%
Of their GDP.
of the GDP.
Wow, that's very low.
Well, there are various reasons. As usual, Indonesia is a big country. Their citizens are well spread over.
Okay.
Right.
And some are quite poor, right?
Some are quite poor. So in a way, they are not easy to get loans.
That's the main reason
That's
why
the main
the
reasons.
household debt situation is so low.
And the infrastructure is also not there for them to actually access to online loan applications.
Great.
One
So,
country.
in actual fact, Eric, I believe that's a good thing, right?
Yes.
Having less debts, people will have less stress.
Less stress.
Okay.
And they live happy. They farm their land. They sell their crops. And they're happy.
That's great, yeah. Not so much to keep up with the Joneses, right?
Yes.
Everybody don't have Adidas shoes and iPhones and stuff like that.
And the government don't actually need to build them up. Should
Great.
anything goes on.
Right, next on the list is Laos PDR. And the ratio also is something like Indonesia, which is about 10%. Okay, and we can imagine this country is also not one of the richer countries in our ASEAN membership.
Yes, but they are still they are on the verge of growing.
Right, I believe it's growing very strongly.
Growing
We have a lot of
strongly.
Malaysians involved in projects in Laos, infra and other projects.
Infrastructures are there,
construction.
but basically they are still very agricultural based,
Right.
which means to say it works on the same thing that they don't have any officially recorded income, well documents. Yeah. So
Great.
in this way, it's
The
actually
next
help them
country, Eric, drum roll.
Malaysia.
It's Malaysia. Yes, Eric, tell us what is happening in Malaysia
out. Okay, Malaysia, the latest
in 2015.
in 2015, we are looking at 160%.
Wow, did I hear you correctly, Eric? Is that 160% of our GDP?
Right.
Or is that low or high?
Well, you want to make your own calculations.
Just now, what did we say? What's the safe level of household debt?
60%.
80%.
The safest
For the country.
For the country is 80%.
Okay.
Well, we just double it up. It's okay.
Oh, it's only double.
It's only double, so it's okay. But that you can see a sharp increase because in 2013,
2 years ago only.
2 years ago, it was only 87%.
Ah,
It was
so
well kept.
what we mentioned earlier is right, isn't it? The banks are wanting to lend all to Malaysia instead of the US or the
Yes.
Europe countries.
Because at that time of the year, we actually see some influx in foreign funds coming in.
Right,
The banks
fantastic.
are easing their control on
We have
giving
foreign
out
banks,
loans.
right, doing business in Malaysia.
And we have seen friends who got a new car with zero down payment.
Oh, fantastic.
And even with $500 as petrol money to take home. So beside no need to pay any money to get a new car, they get additional $500 for their petrol.
Yes. I'm not too sure about other countries, Eric, but in Malaysia, the composition of our household debt, number one is the house.
House
As expected,
As
it's a big
expected.
item, okay?
It's a
Number
big
two, of
item.
course, you can guess,
is the car.
is the car, okay? Then number three probably is some personal loans or some loans.
I would say now the third one will be education.
Yeah, probably education. You
Yes.
spend a lot of money.
Yes,
okay?
because now education is getting much more
Right,
expensive.
very expensive.
And parents in Malaysia are actually sending kids to international school, private schools.
There's an irony there, Eric.
Right.
A lot of countries are sending students to Malaysia to study. We have few hundred universities and colleges today in KL itself compared to just a few some years back.
Yes, I still
And Malaysians
remember
are sending their kids
it's
overseas. Okay.
Well, it's true because it's the same thing. People
And,
found that our country is better. We found that people's country are better.
Yeah, and we find that people are so worried about credit card spending, whereas actually credit card accounts for less than 10% of that household debt. Even though it's so serious, okay. And just now we mentioned 60% of the income for servicing, right? In Malaysia, what's the situation right now on family situation?
On the family situation, we are actually looking at 50%.
Which is still manageable, right?
Still got margin to load.
That's why the bank's still lending to the people.
To the lending.
You earn $3,000, you spend only $1,500.
Yeah, still
to
keeping
service
$1,500.
You can survive, no problem.
Give me another $500.
Okay, yes, I can still afford to lend to you.
Yes.
But the problem is sometimes, Eric, statistics can be a bit misleading. Because some people may have more money, some people may have less money.
And some people might not be buying so much things or so many things.
50%, some people who are very rich, so they probably is spending only 10% or 20% of their income to service loans.
And there were sufficient material things to last their lifetime.
Yes, okay.
Okay, right. So next we look at Myanmar.
Again, Myanmar statistics is not available. But we can share a few economic and financial facts about the country of Myanmar.
Right. We assume that the household debts
we can
GDP
safely assume that to GDP is less than 10%. Based on what we are about to say. Number one is that 70% of households are in rural areas with close to 5 people in a house.
Right, and then the level of education is generally very low, with only 1/3 of people going beyond primary school.
That's quite low, right?
That's quite low.
Most people don't have secondary education.
And the next thing is that houses are typically made of timber and bamboo, with a tin roof, and electricity is only available for a few hours a day, if at all.
Eric, there are a few places in Malaysia where we have this situation where electricity is available for a few hours a day, So that sounds like quite unacceptable for us, right?
For us, definitely.
Can you imagine this is the norm in a country like Myanmar?
For Myanmar, I think a few hours a day to them is quite a luxury.
Yes, and
Right.
if you talk about banking, it takes people about an average of 1.5 hours to get to the closest bank branch. That's quite a hassle, right?
It's quite a hassle. Whether this 1.5 hours you talk about walking or taking a public transport or cycling or whatever. So, which means to say that most of their people are in the rural areas, quite far away from the city, right? And
Makes
then,
us feel very unfortunate, right?
Right. Be appreciative of what we have now. Right?
Yes.
Then 42% of adults claim they have access to a mobile phone. Although this varies from one region to another, In terms of economic activities, over half of adults are involved in farming, and primarily their farming is rice.
Yes. Asia is famous for planting rice, right?
Right, because the staple diet of us Asians are rice.
Yes. And the poverty rate in Myanmar is still very high, and about half the income earners make less than $2 a day. Oh, that's very low, right?
It's very low, and in some countries it's not even sufficient to buy a bottle of Coke.
Yes. And the largest expenses there, you can imagine, is on education, the first, which is 34%, followed by health and electricity.
Which shows to say that they are very concerned about their education. So
yes.
they prefer to spend more money on education rather
They
than
believe
luxury
education can raise them to a new level.
New level and a more easy life.
Yes.
Right? And
Which is true.
take them out of poverty.
Correct.
Then we have Philippines. Philippines almost the same. It's still less than 10%. You know, and
Philippines people are very thrifty. They don't spend so much, right?
Yes, and geographically we are looking at Philippines almost quite similar with Indonesia.
But Philippines is a land of 1,000 islands, right?
Right.
And
similarly with Indonesia, also lands of thousands of islands.
The islands is not easy to go to the bank, right?
Right. And it depends on weather. And sometimes it might not be safe to travel with so much money or cash. So they are also mainly agricultural based.
So Philippines is a wonderful country with less than 10% of debt, household debts. Okay. And we move on to the most powerful country in ASEAN now.
That's
that is Singapore.
Very wonderful country.
Yeah, small, tiny little island.
Robust?
Yes, it's so robust. But it's getting worrying, the trend of household debt in Singapore. Right now it's 170% of their GDP, which is even higher than the US. The US right now has about 137%, despite their very powerful spending pattern.
And you are looking at their very small populations against such a high debt ratio.
Yes, and
which
Eric,
means to say if
just
you
now
work it out,
mentioned, right?
Yes.
How maybe it's easier for them to get loans.
And because of technology and the advances in their country, they get a lot of new stuff to play with.
How about consumerism?
Definitely, it's always there.
It's a very what do you call it? Rich country, right?
Rich country, and
affluent society.
Affluent society, and it's getting to an epidemic level. Well, we put it that serious. But
so
then,
a lot of young people are very what do you call up to their necks in debt, and have to pay a lot of interest, right?
Because when you look at it, in their country, most of them not necessarily they need to buy a car.
Right. Small
country, and to buy a house is quite beyond reach for quite a lot of lower income people, or even towards the so-called young executive.
And you can imagine not so long ago their public transport system is very efficient, very wonderful. But of course, of late, due to influx of foreign workers, the MRT system has jammed up and caused
foreign workers.
Yeah, so the citizens in Singapore are quite unhappy. You know, they don't have cars, most of them, and 80% of people stay in the beautiful HDB's flat. Right. It's wonderful. And they can travel to work easily. Used to. So now it's a bit of hassle. They have to wake up very early, you know, and they have health problems trying to pay off debts right now.
And with their income, most of their income will be spent on luxurious items. So these are the things that causes the debts to.
So I'm sure the government of Singapore is aware of this problem. What steps have they taken, Eric, to relieve this?
At this moment, the central bank has taken steps to ensure debt servicing is less than 60% of the income.
The magic number, 60%.
60%.
Yes, so that means the government in Singapore is aware and agree that 60% is the magic number for people to have maximum household debt for
exposure.
Servicing. Let's say you have $3,000 income, you should not be paying more than 1,000.
1,800 to 2,000.
Yeah, you live only $1,200 in Singapore. Can you survive?
I don't think they can survive with 1,200 a month in Singapore.
So, it should be ideally less than 60%, or probably 40 or 50%.
It depends on their individual, how's their lifestyle to be. Right?
Great, wonderful, fantastic, Eric.
Then
We have
we-
covered the most powerful country in ASEAN.
Next, we look at Thailand. The debts to GDP ratio now is about 140%.
Ah, that's rather high, right?
That's rather high. At
And we have
80%,
mentioned earlier,
yes, is
80%, right?
80% it might destabilize the country.
Yeah, cause an economic crash and,
And
stuff like
Thailand
that.
also been mostly agricultural based.
But right now, Thailand is very rich. They can afford to borrow so much loans, and the banks have confidence to lend to them.
And we can actually see that their currency are strengthening against most major currency. Right.
So let us look at the last country in ASEAN, that is Vietnam.
Well-
Vietnam right now has a slightly higher household debt compared to a few countries with 10%. Okay, they have now 20%, which is very high compared to 10%. But if you compare to Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand,
is still quite low.
a lot of room for
Lot
improvement,
of rooms
right?
for improvement, and Vietnam is a growing country at this
Yeah,
moment.
model after China. And they are worried that they might have a lot of debts like China.
Yes. So we have seen all the ASEAN countries. Then we ask ourselves, then what about the US and the China?
Yeah, the world as a whole, how
World
does
as a whole?
ASEAN
Because these two
compare?
are the biggest economics in the world.
Yeah, the number 1 and number 2 taikos in the world today, US and China.
As usual, US we are looking at definitely more than 100%.
Anything less would be a disappointment.
So if we are looking at about 137% for the US
In 2015 right
in
now.
2015 right now.
How about China, Eric?
China, you'll be surprised at this moment you are looking at 50%. Which
Yeah,
is still
magic
very
number
good.
is 80%, still got some room for
Still got
improvement,
more
right?
room, but you can see a very dramatic increase
Yes.
since the past 10 years. Because in 2002, they are actually looking at 10%.
About 10 years ago, it
About
was
10
only
years.
10%. Can you
Right.
imagine, Eric? Within 10 years, it jumps from 10% to 50%.
It's quite high
Now,
and quite fast.
I think everybody would believe these figures because we all know that Chinese people are so rich. They go everywhere in the world. They do shopping. They
Yes.
buy expensive bags. Besides the big items like properties, they buy like nobody's business. You know, so that increase their household debt, right?
And they buy in bulks and they buy in volumes.
Yeah.
They
So
don't buy a single piece.
I believe the Chinese government should be getting worried right now for such a jump. If you can jump to 50% in a few years, you can jump to 100% in
the
another
next
few
5
years.
Yeah. So it will be quite
Yeah, it's getting very worrying.
worrying
right?
situation
Okay.
for the China government. Right? For more information on today's topic, you may write to Andrew at andrewchia.com or visit
That's like me.
samfisacademy.com.
Okay,
Right.
great.
Alright folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the show. We will be back with a brand new story for our Durian main story on ASEAN Biz in the next editions.
Bye for now.